Skoda, yeah. So the MQB A0IN platform, I don't know if it has the mounting points for the calipers on the rear brakes if you do convert to disc, and I don't know how the brake bias will affect the rear disc conversion because the front itself are very small. And if you have driven any of these cars from the factory in a showroom or a test drive environment, you will notice that they are very under braked. You know, the braking performance is just not good. I mean, you can't do what I did right now on that car and expect to have brakes after that curb, because the car would overheat, the drums would melt literally. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I wouldn't go about upgrading a car which already is at the limit of its braking abilities after, you know, with more power or more torque. So that's the braking bit. I know it's very annoying. I wish they'd given us better brakes because the chassis is pretty neat. But without the brakes from the factory, or without at least a decent upgradability option, which I know will work and which spares will be cheaper, I'm not willing to spend 20k for rear brake discs and brake pads every time. So that's one reason I would not touch these cars from a modding perspective. The second thing is that these platforms aren't available globally. There are similar platform-based cars, but the MQB A0IN is not a global platform, it's an India platform. So while you have that Volkswagen Group parts been available to you, you don't know what will fit or not. Like, I know for a fact that most of the Audi S3, RS3 components, chassis, chassis, suspension, you know, all the tidbits that I have on this car will fit because it's based on the same platform. Now, is the Polo GTI based on the same platform? No. That's the closest neighbor to the Slavia and Virtus category. I don't know if the rear brakes will fit, I don't know if the intakes will fit, I don't know if the exhaust will fit, I don't know a lot of things that will fit or won't fit. So why take a risk on that? And nowadays parts have become really expensive. You know, if you're modding on a budget, earlier Skoda was the way to go, now it isn't. Then you have the issue of the engines. Now these engines, given they are pretty good, you know, if after all I've said you still want to go and mod one of these cars, in my very humble honest opinion, I would just go and mod the 1 liter. It is an engine which is globally available and it is globally used as a, you know, baby tuner platform. So that gives you a lot of peace of mind that the tunes, the maps, the kits that come for that engine are, you know, will not blow your engine, your engine will not suddenly start developing oil consumption issues, your PCV won't fail from an added boost, things like that. So that said, the 1 liter is definitely a better platform. DQ200 versus 6MT or 5MT or whatever it's called in terms of gearbox, I would say I wouldn't touch the DQ200 with mods. Maybe a stage 1 mod on the 1 liter, I can go with the DQ200, but beyond that, I wouldn't go. If I have a manual, I can definitely go all out. But you know, I don't think these cars come with a DQ200 on the 1 liter. I think they come with the torque converter gearbox. So yeah, you can go ahead on that, but I don't think there's a TCU map available for the 1 liter torque converter gearbox. So if you're stuck with automatic 1 liter TSI, stage 1, stage 2 max, because whatever gains you're going to make in torque in those maps will most likely get negated in the lower gears by the torque converter. The torque converter does cut power. It has its own torque limit which is preset into the tube maps. So on a manual car, yes, you can go stage 3. I've seen a couple of stage 3 cars, very quick. Unfortunately, because of the size of the engine, the stage 3 cars have a very narrow power band, but as long as you're on that power band between 4 to 6,000 RPM, 4 to 5.5 actually, it's actually 1500 RPM power band, but as long as you're in between that power band, it's really quick and really fun. And you know, it's not quick enough to overwhelm the braking system on the car. Again, one of my gripes, but it is quick enough to have fun in it, proper fun in it. Now the 1.5 TSI, I know a lot of Indian tuners are upgrading those 1.5 TSI engines also, but they are doing it in one of two ways. One is they're swapping in a European or a T-Roc ECU into the car and programming the ECU first and then writing the map on the T-Roc ECU which is unlocked versus the Slavia and Virtus 1.5 ECU which is locked. That's one way of doing it. That just adds a lot of cost to the damn thing, but it just becomes very expensive. Secondly, the more important challenge for that 1.5 litre engine is that globally it is a successor of the 1.4 litre engine, which anyways was an absolute tuner no-no, and a lot of the large the global tuners have said they will not touch the 1.5 litre. It's not because it can't take more boost, because of the cylinder shut off, how it works, they're not very sure if it'll create issues with the tune. Then you have the issue of the completely weak connecting rods. The pistons are strong because most of these direct injection cars have to have very strong pistons, but the connecting rods are really, really weak. So you may get a 200 horsepower Virtus or a Slavia map 1.5 TSI, but that'll maybe last you 20,000, 15,000 kilometers before the piston bends, or you need to have very heavy, very high-end fuel. So you need to run 100 octane to maintain that car in that state of tune for its lifetime. If you put lower octane fuel, you will blow the motor. There is no question of if, it's a question of when. So that comes down to purely a question of, are you willing to risk your engine for an engine which globally the large tuners have said this is not tunable, or this is something we are not comfortable tuning. Wow, that's very close. Or would you say, okay, fine, even if the global guy says no, I'm gonna go with one of the Indian tuners, and there are a lot of them out there, a lot of them are pretty good, but again, it's a question of risk. Would I take that risk of getting a 1.5 TSI and tuning it? Absolutely no, I wouldn't do that. I'll just get a nice catback exhaust because that car does sound good and just run with it. I wouldn't do any kind of stupid mods on it. Maybe see what spring rate it comes with from the factory and try to match it with some aftermarket springs or aftermarket dampers. But dampers is also a challenge because the aftermarket rear dampers that are available in the market, Bilstein and all, they are available for the Polo and not for a car with a boot. So with the boot, your rear dampers need more strength, which if you put the Polo dampers, they'll fit. Polo GTI dampers, they'll fit. But I'm not sure it'll hold the rear weight for long. And if same goes for the spring rate, your springs initially when you put them on, they might work nicely, but eventually they will sag because they are designed for a hatchback and not a sedan. So that's another problem. Besides these, out of the two, I think the Virtus is a better car, honestly. I mean, I'm a Skoda fanboy, but I feel the Skoda is very poorly put together and poorly kitted. I believe you can get the manual 1.5 that really elevates some of your... If you're going to keep the car stock with just an exhaust and some suspension mods or cosmetic mods, 1.5 manual is the way to go. It's got very decent power. Braking force, not so good, but for a stock car, you won't be... It'll take a while to get the brakes overwhelmed. I mean, it'll be shorter than what it would take for a Laura, but it'll take a while for the brakes to get overwhelmed, so you're good with that. There are some VCDS tweaks on the brakes that I want to try. So if you have a Virtus 1.5 manual or a Slavia 1.5 manual, do reach out to me. We can meet up, we can try out these VCDS hacks to improve the braking feel. But as long as you have those rear drum brakes, your braking capacity will still be very severely limited. So yeah, that's my short 15-20 minute take on the Virtus and the Slavias.